What's going on? Welcome back to Financial Journey. So today we're going to talk to you on Lucid. I want to go over some of the current data points, break it down on some expectations for this upcoming week, and what might be potentially coming out from Lucid itself. Before I get into any of that, make sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Always greatly appreciate that. And with that said, let's get right to it. So based on Friday, Lucid did go down 2.83%. So more of a continuation just of the technicals breaking down. As far as volume, 29.4 million shares being traded, 36 is the average. So relatively good for a Friday because normally Fridays are lower volume. No news from Lucid, no SEC filing. So they have still yet to come out with any news in 2024. So it's not necessarily the best, but some expectations for this upcoming week. There's only one real data point that a lot of people need to watch for, and that is on January 11th, good old CPI data. And I feel like a lot of people, including a lot of analysts, are really going to look at this data very, very closely because a lot of analysts are saying that this is going to be the key pivot point for the Feds to start cutting rates, and as well for the broader market to kind of get the green light once again to continue its rally up. So a lot of analysts, like I said, are just anticipating the market to continue to trend down due to technicals and a slowdown in some areas. But this might kickstart everything because the Feds might be cutting rates potentially 4 to 6 times throughout 2024. And a lot of people are under the impression that once that does happen, you are going to have similar rallies to what happened in December. This analyst kind of says that exact same thing. So I'm going to play this video near the tail end. So that might be something to kind of look forward to. And that is coming out, like I said, on January 11th. So Friday or Thursday, I believe. So yeah, that's going to be a lot of volatility leading up to that date. Aside from that though, one specific thing to Lucid that might be coming out is their numbers, Q4 numbers. And previous videos, I've said that most likely it's going to come near the tail end of January, but I did look back and surprisingly enough, they actually submitted their numbers on January the 12th. So assuming it might exactly be the same nature of that, it might come potentially Friday. So that might be good. Bad, I don't know. I feel like the broader market is anticipating a mess, especially considering for Lucid to hit their 2023 targets for deliveries, they have to do at least 4,000 vehicles being delivered. And that is unheard of because I think the most that they've actually delivered ever since they started to produce any vehicles was 1,900. So they need to hit like double their record. I think that's just too far-fetched. And I think a lot of people really like Lucid, but their vehicles only. Absolutely. They love their technology. They just hate management. You can talk to absolutely anyone. And I talk to various people that have never even invested in Lucid. Everyone knows that they have an amazing vehicle, just can't produce worth shit. My apologies for that. And at the end of the day, like Lucid has done about 3 major rounds of VP changes. Recently, there was just a one-off Sherry House, but at what stage is Peter going to be on the chopping block? I kind of said this last video, but it really will have to. I think 2024 is going to be a very like down to the wire situation for Lucid because the technicals are just continuing to break down. Like the PIF does have an average of around $10.50, I believe, or 29 cents. But regardless, around $10. So like they are at a substantial loss. And if Lucid does continue this downtrend and let's say 2024 doesn't go all that well for it and it goes to, let's say, $2, for instance, at what stage is the PIF or someone just going to walk away and be like, okay, this management is done. Like we'll just focus on Seer. So I feel like a lot of Lucid investors take for granted PIF because technically they could walk away. A lot of people say like, you know what, they're going to stick with them through thick and thin. It's not a marriage, it's business, and business can be relentless. So I've seen quite a few just overly bullish posts about the PIF just always going to support Lucid. I kind of agree to some regard, right? No different. I've given an analogy of if for those of you that have kids, if your kid is spending, depending on their age, but if your kid is just constantly horrible with money, are you going to keep giving them money? Or are you going to be like, slap them around, virtually of course, and say, you need to get your shit together. I'm not giving you any more money. So I know this is what I feel is going to happen in 2024 if Lucid does not actually get to where it needs to be production wise. Hopefully AMP2 will really help offset that, because they seem to be oddly more productive than AMP1, but still, I've kind of went on a tangent, my apologies. Moving on though, talking on shorts, I'll go over what shorts did on Friday and possibly some expectations for this week. So on Friday, they hammered Lucid insanely. So they increased 10.79 million shares on Friday. 25.44% of the free float is being shorted. 225.2 million shares overall are being shorted, and cost to borrow average is 4.04, so a little bit lower in comparison to Friday. And it is interesting to note, so you can kind of see right here that there was institutions, as I've said, most likely BlackRock. Obviously I'm not a financial advisor, of course, but BlackRock probably did buy Lucid to lend shares out. And you can kind of see it went from about more than 10 million shares available to be shorted to what we have now, around 600,000. So someone wanted to massively bring Lucid down. So Lucid, it isn't being favored right now. Clearly shorts hate it. I don't know who on earth really wants Lucid to fail. Maybe it's correlated to the PIF and Lucid's just more of a byproduct of that, and maybe there's someone trying to take the PIF down. I have no idea, but Lucid, this is absolutely crazy to have 25.44% of your free float being shorted. That's crazy stuff. But when it comes down to some expectations of what shorts might do this week, it'll all come down to CPI. So if CPI does show some signs of kind of worsening, if that makes sense, then shorts are going to just hammer Lucid along with the broader market. So just anticipate that, a lot of volatility, especially Thursday going forward. Moving on though, talking on options based on Friday, $653,000 in calls being purchased versus 1.05 million in puts. Sentiment wise, 42% of all the options being done on Friday are bearish. So people are anticipating a continuation of the downtrend of the call options that are being purchased. There's a consensus that is going to be above $4, and that's gone down quite dramatically because people were at one time expecting it to be above $5. Now it's just breaking down. Looking at puts, it is oddly enough anticipating to be below 350 by the end of January the 12th. So not the best. And so as far as going into next week, some support and resistance points that you need to watch for. With it at 378, it did land on a very strong support. Didn't really have enough to break below that and stay below that, but it is currently trading between this S2 and this S1. So 378, you'll want to watch for that to hold going into next week. Vice versa, 407 is going to be that next strong resistance. And if it does break this 378, then you are going to see, at least in the short term, potentially trading between this S3 and this S2. So maybe 332. Kind of crazy if you ask me, but this does match the Elliott wave. So as you can kind of see right here, it does have the pivot point of being $4.67 or 68 cents. So as long as Lucid is trading below that, then it is anticipated to go anywhere between $2.95 and $3.25, which kind of matches the, I guess, the low end right here. So technicals, like something needs to change ideally from Lucid. So Lucid coming out with some good pieces of news, maybe on ESS. I know I'm just throwing that out there. Also, I'm going to make sure every single video I say for Lucid, I want a question. And I've explained in the past, Canadians can't pose any questions to Lucid for their earnings. So ideally, I would like someone to please ask the question about ESS. Why are they not pursuing it? Because clearly, you can kind of tell initially when they said that Saudi Arabia just was not there infrastructure-wise to accommodate for ESS. But since then, there's been a lot of articles coming out saying that, hey, we are like moving towards ESS, like investing a ton of money in our infrastructure. So it would make logical sense for Lucid to pick that back up because it can be very profitable, but it would be nice to actually hear from Peter himself about that. Which, even aside from that, this upcoming earnings probably will be a crazy roller coaster because you're not going to have Sherry House saving Peter from his rants about technology. So I don't know about this upcoming earnings. It might be probably the most frustrating one out of them all, but who knows? What do I know? Looking right here, number of retail investors continue to get out based on the momentum indicator, and stochastic is at 3, so very inverse to the broader market, which is still considered overbought. So stochastic, yeah, is just very, very overdone. And so if there's a good piece of news, then you might get a rush of value investors coming in and potentially even shorts leaving because they are overextended as well. But it just, like I said, I think now for the third time in this video, it does fall back down onto Lucid. So with all that said, I feel like this overall week is going to be negative up until data point on Thursday, CPI, that might actually save it. Not enough to get above and stay above $4 in my opinion, but I think it'll come down to Lucid's data. So I'm just going to play this quick video like I mentioned, only a minute or so from this, and this kind of loops it together on what a lot of analysts are anticipating based on CPI data and everything else. So stay tuned for this.
Investors' perception of a Fed pivot helped power the rally into year-end. But should they worry about an economy still digesting the lag effects from the hikes of the past almost 2 years now? Joining us now is Thorsten Slok, Apollo Global Chief Economist. Thorsten, great to have you back on the show. We're going to start right there with that question because I know you've been mulling it and putting research together around it.
Yeah, no, and I think the critical thing really here is that should we put weight, exactly as you're saying, Morgan, on the fact that the Fed has been tightening credit conditions and raising the cost of capital for a very long period of 18 months up until what happened in December. That would all argue for a slower economy over the coming quarters. That is still what the consensus is expecting. That's still what, broadly speaking, we have been hearing from a number of different analysts in terms of what's coming in 2024. But I think what is very important in that discussion is now to begin to put weight on trying to quantify, well, what are actually the implications of the Fed pivot? Chris Waller, the FOMC member, said in November that the easing of financial conditions that came in the second quarter after Silicon Valley Bank, that was enough to create 5% GDP growth in the third quarter. In other words, a boom in the economy. So why wouldn't we now today come to the conclusion that the pivot that we saw in December is likely to also begin to create a boom, potentially in the labor market, lower rates, also in the housing market, and all that is just complicating a lot the Fed's path of getting inflation back to 2%.
So we've seen a Fed pivot, it's loosened financial conditions. And
so yeah, ultimately he kind of goes on to talk on how CPI is important and all the other fun jazz, and that could really cause a nice domino effect in the broader market, causing another January or I guess December rallies throughout the year. So who knows, bigger and better things might be coming down the pipeline. Just Lucid needs to get their shit together. Once again, pardon my French. Let me know your thoughts on Lucid. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. What is your thoughts, for instance, on their actual upcoming numbers, their Q4 numbers? Do you think it's going to be a miss? Do you think it's going to be a hit? Do you think they can do 4,000 deliveries in Q4? Like, what's your thoughts on all that? But one final thing I just wanted to share with you, take advantage of this promo I've been sharing with you. It's been extended up until January the 15th. Simply sign up for an account with Moomoo, throw $100 at it, and you get 5 free stocks. Each stock is valued up to $2,000. So this is one of the best deals in the market. Link in the description below and also the comments. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.